Welcome back to another Race Weekend Canada's F1 show. It is me, Dames Nellas, joined by team manager and Pro Pinty's NASCAR driver, Darryl Timmers. Welcome back.
Thanks, man.
You've been busy. There's been a lot of things happening. Of course, you were in the NASCAR Pinty Series at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park a couple weeks back. You had a good run, had some technical difficulties. That's how motorsport goes.
It is. We depend on the machine.
Yeah, that's right.
Happens.
We actually had the team out in Quebec this past weekend. The boys did really well out there.
They did. We locked up a couple championships. Jaden Harry took the Senior Briggs Championship, which is probably one of the harder championships to win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ian McIntyre took home the Masters Championship.
Yes. Shouts out to Mac.
Yeah, we got second in Rock Junior, third in Rock Senior. We took first, second, and third for our engines in Briggs Senior.
There you go.
And then our drivers were first, second, fifth, and seventh. So we'll take that, man. Can't complain.
This is what you need to do. If you're in the GTA area, contact Darryl, Pro Racing Ontario. Get on track. Grab yourself a cart. Engine services, clearly top tier, as you said.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, we'll take
pretty much in every category.
Yeah.
So if you're behind the wheel in a go-kart right now and you're looking to get some top tier service, or maybe grab yourself a new kart for next season or the upcoming season or even the tail end season of what remains, hit Darryl up at Most Sport Karting Center, or just hit him directly, Pro Racing Ontario, on the social feeds. With that being said, nice to catch up briefly. Let's talk about Formula 1. Singapore Grand Prix in the books. We finally got a fantastic race for 2023. All the Max Verstappen fans were not poo-pooing or cawing on Max.
Nope.
He just didn't qualify well. And around a street circuit that's tight to overtake, we knew we were going to be in for something. Come Sunday, Carlos Sainz finishes P1 from pole position, not too shabby. Lando Norris in that McLaren
P2
comes in P2. And Lewis Hamilton. P3. Steady Lewis. P3, and if I'm not mistaken, he's 4 podiums away from 200. They said that to him while he was sitting down with Lando and Carlos. He looked around and he said, "You guys even have
200 starts?"
That's what he said. So when we talking GOAT talk, I mean, let's start right at the top. Carlos Sainz, Ferrari, P1, finishes P1, starts from pole position back-to-back. He had pole in Monza as well. And for the last little bit, I would say maybe the last 4 to 5 races, it looks like he's had the measure on Leclerc. How do you feel about that?
I agree. I think something clicked for him. I think he's just feeling comfortable again in that car. I think, you can tell when he's put in lap upon lap together. Those last 10 laps were not easy for him to keep it in the lead. And he was playing that game. He was keeping Norris in his DRS. He's thinking about things out there. The strategy is actually going his way for once. So I think at this point he's got the step up on Leclerc, and you can't take that from him. With the 2 poles, and he's outperforming him at this point. It's not like you can say it for the entire season, but definitely for the last couple of races, he's upped his game and showed why he's that second Ferrari driver.
And the interesting thing is he actually beat Leclerc last year in the points at the end of the season. So, I mean, this is a good problem to have if you are Ferrari.
Yes.
The car looks to be performing better. I believe over 1 lap, it's always been fast. The problem was the degradation of the tires. They've seemed to somehow, over the past, I would say this race, and maybe the track just suited them or suited it very well. But it looks to be like the degradation is becoming less and less of a problem, and they're becoming a little bit more competitive. Going back to Monza, he was in the lead for a little while until he made a mistake, and then Max was just like, "Okay, done with you."
Finally,
but that's Carlos Sainz. Let's talk about the masterclass though, and the racecraft to keep Norris in the DRS, because it almost looked and sounded like Carlos Sainz knew more about what was going on in the race than his engineers did at that point.
Yeah, they were second guessing him and being like, "Hey, Norris is in your DRS," and he had to be like, "Guys, this is on purpose. If I leave Norris alone without DRS, George is going to pick him off all day long. Same with Lewis, and then now he's on his own. If he keeps Norris in DRS, that DRS train starts to
becomes
form,
the train,
and then he can't get by him anymore. So he was obviously thinking on his toes, trying to keep his team in front, And when you see a driver thinking about these things while he's out there. It just means that he's way more comfortable in the car than he needs to be, right?
That part. I was just about to ask, like, when you talk about that comfort level, getting comfortable in the car affords you the opportunity to do other things
think about
while you're driving.
Yeah. You see Max, talking about Ferrari doing a pit stop in the background because he can hear those things. Everyone's like, well, why is he thinking about these things? Because if the car is nice or the car is working well, all of a sudden now your brain doesn't have to think about the car anymore. It doesn't have to think about what's going to happen if I push a little bit harder with this car. If the car is predictable, you don't have to think about the car anymore.
Right.
You start thinking about the strategy. You start thinking about the tire deg. You start thinking about everything else that's going on around you. And clearly, when Sainz started thinking about, okay, well, there's 2 fast Mercedes coming up on us right now with fresher tires.
With brand new mediums.
Yeah.
Because they played that
played
throughout the whole weekend, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and when it comes down to it, he's like, the only way that I can keep them behind me or without passing me down the straightaway is to keep Norris in my DRS so that they can't get Norris.
Yeah.
Keep him in second. Make sure that they keep the pressure on Norris. And then you saw it in the last couple of laps. He's like, all right, I'm going to check out now.
Yeah.
So they can do whatever they want with Norris, and then he's gone.
Yes.
By the time they battle and stuff like that, the last 5 laps, it's too late. They're gone.
It was such a beautiful piece of driving to watch. Like we've been 2023, even last year, you kind of knew the result before you watched the race.
Yeah.
So not only did we have a race in which Max was starting from outside of the top 10, we had a race where there were 3 different teams in it for the win.
Yeah.
At the end of it,
Crazy.
right? We had Sainz up there in P1. We had Norris. Who really looked like he was hanging on. He didn't really look like he was going to threaten for that P1.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest, I didn't expect Norris to finish P2 based on the way his race was unfolding as it was unfolding. It was kind of meh. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you looked up, you're like, hold on a second. It's Carlos Lando.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was one of those situations where, the guy in P2 was kind of pulled along by P1, but then the other 2 guys couldn't capitalize on it because they couldn't get by that DRS train, right?
Right.
And Norris, kudos to him too. He had old tires. He stuck in there. He had to put the laps in. He wasn't the one that made a big mistake like George did on that last lap there.
We'll get there.
And Norris, he tagged the wall just like George did. He just didn't do it as hard.
Right. So let's talk about this race for Norris, because I think this is a very, very big race for Norris. Just in terms of getting back on the podium. He's had a few podiums this year.
Yep.
Which is great for him. I mean, he's a talent. There's no doubt about that. But the pressure that Piastri has been putting on him, especially of late, and Oscar's had some bad luck.
Yep.
Let's be honest. If the dice rolled the other way, or if the bad luck happened to somebody else down the grid, we could be looking at Oscar with more points and closer finishes, maybe even higher finishes than Lando in a few circumstances.
Yeah.
So where do you think Lando, leaving the circuit this past weekend in Singapore, mentally, where is he at? Because he almost seemed like he was in a bit of a funk.
Yeah.
The car was good. He was still doing all right. But I didn't think he thought Piastri was going to be as close as he is.
Yeah, I think this, in the end, when he's walking out of there, he knows, okay, at least I outperformed my teammate in the race. I beat my teammate in the race. The team knows that I'm still able to perform.
Right.
The team knows that, if I need to, when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, I will be on that podium, or I will be doing the maximum potential of the car. So I think now it's kind of like a sigh of relief. It's like, you know what?
Okay.
This is great. Like I still know what I'm doing. The car is still fast.
Yeah. The car is very fast. Yeah. And that's the thing. He has some upgrades on the car that Piastri's going to get this weekend,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. So. And even for Piastri to pick up 10 spots in that race, he kind of just went underneath the radar with everything that he was doing in that race because it was so exciting at the front that no one really paid attention to the back.
It was exciting. It was, listen, the 4 laps, and you're looking at nose to tail racing at the front.
Yes.
Right? Because we've said the new regulations, they've helped the mid-pack teams. There's no more back markers. Everybody's kind of a mid-packer now. And we're used to seeing that kind of DRS train, P6 to P12, P7 to P14, that kind of thing. But to have it at the front.
Right there. Yeah.
Right? And we saw a strategy play from Mercedes that really kicked off the day before in qualifying.
Yeah.
George had a great qualifying. Lewis not so much. But they made sure to save a set of fast tires, of medium tires, fresh, not scrubbed, nothing.
Yeah.
And when both of them pitted under that safety car and put those boots on,
Everyone
they had extreme pace. 2 to 3 seconds faster a lap, a single lap, than the race leader at that point. What happened? How come George wasn't able to get there? Like, we knew he crashed, but before all of that, because the car started to fall apart just as he got there.
Yeah, you know, when you're 2 seconds a lap quicker, you're not going to be 2 seconds a lap quicker for the entire session. The tire's still going to have drag. The tire's still going to be crazy. So for the fact that, you know, by the time they caught them, they were probably 8 laps, 10 laps deep into their tire cycle, which at that point it starts to kind of come back towards the
overheating phase.
They're wearing the tire out and stuff like that. So when if it was peak right away, right on their bumper, they would have got by them no problem. But the fact that they had tire drag before they caught Norris,
right? Because you could see it in the rear of the car when Russell started to get on power, the back was stepping out at that point. And I guess what you're saying is, while the delta between Sainz and Russell was 2 seconds, it was only 2 seconds because George is pushing it to the limit. And Sainz is holding something back just in case, right?
Yes, exactly. And then you see when George and you know, Lewis finally were bumper to bumper with Norris and Sainz was using Norris, so no matter what, if we know the Mercedes is slow on the straightaway. So if the McLaren has DRS on Sainz, then Merc is not going to be able to get by Norris as easy.
You think Mercedes could have won that race this weekend?
I think so. I think they could.
Like George was going out there saying, I want to win this race.
I think they could have. I totally do. I think if Sainz wasn't smart enough to keep Norris in his DRS, they both would have been sitting ducks, and they would have got by them no problem. I think it's just one of those situations where a driver was smart enough to start thinking ahead and figure out what he can do to get there.
That was a savvy move. You know what? That was a veteran move, man.
It was.
We tend to think, because we don't see Sainz on the podium regular, that he hasn't been around and he doesn't know how to race. These guys know how to win. They've spent their entire career leading up to Formula One winning champions. Champions, right? Do you think if Lewis was in front of George in that stint, he would have got him? Because near the end of that stint, Lewis had the better tires.
But Lewis has always been known for
he managed those things.
So I think there would have been a better chance to do it. But they're not going to swap Lewis and George just to give Lewis a chance at going after it, right?
I guess what I'm saying is this, right? With Lewis being a veteran in the sport, like I almost felt like George. There was a moment where George had the opportunity,
and then it was gone.
He just kind of, he didn't really time his move on Norris, at all, really, Where I feel like I've seen Lewis in that scenario before with Norris before, with whoever, and I just feel like he's always been able to get it done. But maybe that's the difference when you're talking about a 7-time world champion and a kid who's still 23, 24. Make no mistake, this is not a shot at George. This is just an experience play.
And I think so. I think there was going to be a better chance for Lewis to get by him just because he's way better on tire drag. He's way better on saving his car to go at it at the end. You know, and I think in the end, you know, as soon as George got kind of crashed on his own there, you saw Lewis just go right up to the wing of Norris. Like, it wasn't like he took a lap to get to him. He only had 1 lap to get to him, and by the time they were crossing the line, he was right there. So I think Lewis had a little bit better chance just because his tires would have lasted a little bit longer. Because, you know, by the time they were really pushing to try to get by, and he was in the middle of the battle with Norris where he got by him and then Norris got him right back, and you know, they're burning up their tires right there, trying to get trying to get by each other. And at that point, I think, you know, Lewis would have been able to save his tires a little bit better just because of it's what he does, you know.
The strategy, it's an analytical strategy thing. Like you said, if you trust the car and it's predictable, which the Mercedes seems to be at the tail end of a race. Right? It's always very fast. in race trim, but particularly past the halfway point when it's low fuel. So he's comfortable in that scenario. And, you know, if he knows, you know, George is in front, young gun, he's going to try and get him. I'm just going to keep my delta at a certain pace because I have the draft. And as long as I have his DRS, I'll be there.
You'll be there,
right?
exactly.
So, yeah, and then, of course, you know, we all know there's no need to go through it. George, I guess he just, you know, I was listening to the commentary Martin Brundle was saying it's kind of like a hypnotizing thing when you're on a street circuit with all the lights and it looked kind of like that's just what happened to George. Like he just got caught up watching the back of Lando's car rather than watching the track, you know? So
and like Norris touched the wall right in front of him. And, you know, when you're behind someone, you're usually within a couple mil of where he is.
Yeah.
And Norris touched the wall a little bit. Yeah, he was okay. And then George just destroyed the wall. So, you know, as soon as that happened, it was like the whole front end just caved in on itself and it wasn't able to get into the corner. But hey,
unfortunate for sure. It's, you know, it's part of it. That's part of the learning curve, right? Like he's hunting. He's won a race before. He wants to get back up there. Like he's hungry. He's one of them young bulls and one of those young lions who really want to start proving to guys like Lewis and guys like Fernando that, hey man, we have respect for you guys. You guys are legends in the sport, world champions for sure. But I want to be the next world champion.
Exactly.
Right. So that's what we're looking for. And on that same note, we have a conundrum at AlphaTauri now because we have Liam Lawson, who stepped in short notice, and he's done a great job. In delivering in a car that has low expectations. Like we're looking at a points finish here, 3 races in,
and he kicked out Verstappen out of qualifying.
Yeah, he did. He there you go. The conundrum is, or at least what we're hearing right now, Daniel Ricciardo, they want Daniel Ricciardo in the car. Who knows when he's coming back? I don't even know if he will come back. It would appear Yuki Tsunoda is racing for his career now.
All of a sudden. 4 races ago, you asked him.
And 4 races ago, Yuki's been doing a great job. You know, but that just goes to show you like the fast-paced dog-eat-dog environment, the pressure cooker environment that is Formula One. What do you make of that? Like, I know it's tough to say. My only thing is we've seen it before because that's what happened in De Vries, right?
Yeah, De Vries, Kvyat, you know, you see it all the time when the Red Bull seats. It is what it is. Everyone knows no one's ever safe at an AlphaTauri or Red Bull seat. Like,
right.
It is what it is. Like no one. It seems like they're the only team that's willing to just cut a driver mid-season just because they're not performing really well.
Right.
So you know, Tsunoda had a couple of run-ins this weekend which were questionable, to be honest.
Dude, he got a puncture and retired. I
I
didn't understand.
Yeah, but also like I felt like the Red Bulls, whenever they're around the AlphaTauris, it's like get out of my way and just like hip checks them or in qualifying with Max holding him up, and it was like that was impeding 100%, but they didn't go and they didn't say anything.
No, we don't even want to get into that stuff. So I mean, you brought the Red Bull thing up, the whole helmet, Marco, Sergio Perez, like. That's too much. That's for a different pod.
Yeah.
You know, like
that could go on for hours.
Yeah, we could go on for hours on that. But I mean, in reality, like I don't know, man. I think shiny new toy shows up. I think Liam Lawson has a good shot at getting that seat beside Daniel Ricciardo next year.
I think so too, you know, and I think right now, you know, Tsunoda was performing and doing well all season, and you know, as Nick being his teammate. But that new car seems good, man. Like
it seems alright.
AlphaTauri doesn't seem like it's out to lunch anymore. It's, you know, it's at the back of the pack, but it's not a.
But it was out to lunch.
It was bad,
to lunch.
And that's what I feel bad about Nick De Vries. You know, when you're giving him a car that is absolutely
imagine
horrible.
Nick De Vries signed up with Williams this year.
Yeah.
Right, because that was who he was racing with last year when he put up that points finish in where was that? Spa, right?
Yeah.
So imagine he got into that environment as opposed to Sargent, who's having a rough go. And on that note, you know, we want to send a shout out, thoughts and prayers to Lance Stroll because that was a big impact.
That was a huge impact.
That was big. We've been critical of Lance in the past, and I think rightfully so.
Yes.
But nobody wants to see a racing driver
or anything like that.
turn in on the penultimate corner and just basically just go head first into the barricade. That was a high level impact. What? Do you think, I don't know, man. I don't know if Stroll's head's in it anymore, to be honest.
Honestly, I think the media's getting to him, you know? Like, every time he has a little hiccup like this, it just seems like he's not the same. You know, I feel like he just needs a good reset. He needs a good, and it was good to have Alonso go to his team to help develop the car and make it that much better. But really and truly, he has one of the best drivers on the grid as his teammate. Yes, Vettel is one of the best drivers as well. That was his teammate, but the car was horrible last year. And, you put a driver that can make any car really work, like Alonso, who's so experienced having horrible equipment and stuff like that.
Right.
Where he's going to optimize that car the best he can. Where you take Stroll, who's, I'm not going to say he's not a great driver, but he's not the top tier drivers out there like everyone else.
No.
He's going to struggle in that car, and the media eats you up in Formula One when you struggle.
Yeah, the media in this sport, man, it's like nothing. They're like, I want to say there's no respect from the media to the driver. They will ask you the savage question with live on camera, like,
to try to get it right.
We're in Canada. The reporter's a little bit respectful, post hockey game or basketball game, because there's a rapport there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, the Formula One world is a different world, man. And the thing about it that I don't know if his head is in it anymore is because I watched the onboard. The car was oversteering and stepping out 2 corners before he got to that final corner.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking to myself, if you know that car is stepping out on power, you're trying to put a lap down, you're 2-3 corners, 1 corner out, and you just pin it and you're just trying to get it through. It's like,
yeah, you kind of know that what's going to be the limit of it and what isn't going to be the limit.
But do you think he knows though? Like,
I don't think. I think he does, but I think he's to the point where he just feels like he has to perform. So even if he doesn't think the car is going to make it through the corner, he does it anyway.
So he can't look like he chumped out.
Exactly.
But that is really what the task is.
Yeah.
The task is to whoever can drive that car closest to the limit is winning the race.
Yep. Yeah.
Right? Depending on how good the car is.
Exactly.
Right? So when you look at the Aston Martin, you have somebody in Alonso who's very good at driving it close to the limit. However, over the past couple races, looks like they've taken a step back.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes in Formula One in terms of development. But anyhow, I really, really hope he's all right.
Yeah.
He did the smart thing. Hands were off the wheel
before he hit the wall.
Like we said the last podcast that about Ricardo, he did the right thing. He knew it was been and it was over. Boom, hands came back.
And you see, like, if you look at his steering wheel, it,
man.
like, locked left, locked right, and then locked back. Like, just kept going. And
his hands would have been left on there. All right, let's do an overwhelmed, underwhelmed, surprised.
So, overwhelmed, I got to go with Liam Lawson, man.
Yeah, okay.
That was huge. Like, I was watching quali, and I was like, oh, yeah, whatever.
His weekend in
his
totality.
Whole weekend. Like,
yeah.
I was like, okay, this is going to happen. And then for him to knock Verstappen out of qualifying,
it was like, holy
cow!
Some calls were being made
that was
from top tier to bottom. Like, hey, man.
Just already, all right, yeah.
But you know what, though? As far as it goes in terms of driving and getting a seat, that's a stat.
Yeah.
That's a stat.
100%.
Right now, there's only a handful of races left before the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll go with Liam. I like that.
Yep. So we don't need to talk about the Red Bull anymore. We talk about them enough. So let's just go say, Max, like...
Yeah, I guess 11th to 5th is not that impressive.
No, it's not really, especially when that car is just... But
what do you think happened with that car this
weekend? So that car is so aero dependent. Like the under tray needs tons of air to go underneath it to actually give it some grip. So Singapore is a very bumpy track. So they can't run the cars low. So all of a sudden now, if you slam the car on the Red Bull and it's bottoming out, you have to raise it. It doesn't have as much grip anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how...
Coupling that with the heat.
Yeah.
And the barricades around the track, there's less airflow.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And I think it just got to the point where the car, they had to raise the car so much that the aero stopped working for them. Wow. And now they're exposed. They can't.
So everybody knows the chink in the armor now.
Yeah.
But I guess that's so track dependent. Like how is it?
You go to if you can go to a track that is not as bumpy or is not as Singapore.
Well, I guess they're saying they're going back to Suzuka this weekend.
So it
should be a bounce back track.
So watch out. They're going to be flying there now because they have something to prove. But, The under tray couldn't do what it needed to do because they had to raise the car so much, and all of a sudden now the car is exposed of its weakness and it can't do anything anymore. So, there you go.
That's why I like this guy in the pod, man. This guy knows what's going on.
Yeah. I think I Googled it.
All right, last one.
Surprise. So the only surprise I'm going to say, I got to go with Norris just because I didn't think he was going to stay there.
I'll be honest, I didn't... Early phases of the race, before Sargent parked it in the wall, when it was just kind of like a management, all right, cool. Then Sargent parks it in the wall, and I remember looking up, I'm like, yo, where's Norris? Just because, I'm watching the English broadcast, they tend to hype the English a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking, I'm like, this guy's way down the order.
Yeah.
He was way down the order.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, this guy's in P2. So for me, it was more, not so much that he was able to hang on at the end, but it was for me, how did you get there in the first place?
I don't even know how you got there. No, I agree. I totally agree. I totally agree.
And I will also say a surprise for me a little bit was Leclerc.
Yes.
I get it. It's important for Ferrari to start racking up those wins, and they backed the pack up. They had a great strategy for once. Ferrari had a fantastic strategy for once.
Yep.
But the reality of it was, he got screwed in a safety car and he couldn't really fight back.
Yeah.
And it was the first safety car.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, you guys should have put him on a different strategy to try and get him back.
Get him some track
that 1-2 was there.
Yeah.
It was there.
No, I agree. And
he was just a sitting duck by the time the Mercedes pulled up on him. There was no point.
There was no way that he could even. When they were coming through the pack, it was like.
I'm concerned for him, bro.
Yeah.
Like not in like a real way, but like he doesn't look the same.
But I also feel like Ferrari's not going to get rid of him.
No. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But we've seen time and time again in this sport, man. Like, once you start driving with your head down, and not in a good way. I mean, off track, your head is down. Not on track with your head down. When your head is down and them shoulders start to slump a little bit, it's hard to come out of that. Like, he really needs a big weekend this weekend in Suzuka. Yeah. He does.
Yep.
Because... like you said, they've set him up as they got rid of Vettel for this.
Yes,
like they literally forced Vettel out the door for this guy.
Yeah,
right, and that's a 4-time world champion. So he knows that at one point, if not, it's probably still this way, but he is their golden boy.
Yeah.
But now you have a guy in Carlos Sainz who I really like because it's a very grassroots and blue collar way of going about this Formula One business.
Yep.
There's no flashing lights.
Yep.
There's no spectacle around Carlos. He just
does
comes
his job.
in, he grinds, and he does the work. You can tell he takes care of stuff off the track as well, and he's put the work in, and he's put the work in, and he's put the work in, and now you're starting to see the fruits of his labor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think for Leclerc, he's in a position where he's like, well, hold on a second. I'm the guy. I need to prove to this guy and everybody else that I'm still the guy.
Yeah, I honestly think that Ferrari has a great lineup. They're both their drivers are very meticulous about what they want and how they want to do it. And I feel like they're the reason that Ferrari is going to turn around. I feel like you need a good base of drivers in order for a team to turn around. Right?
No, you're right, man. Yeah. I agree with you 100% on that because I'll be honest, before I wasn't really a big Ferrari fan.
Yeah.
I like Leclerc, I like Sainz, and I was thinking about this day. I'm not because I put a Ferrari hat on today to go to the gym, and I'm like, why do I even have this hat?
Yeah.
I'm like, seriously, I don't like Ferrari. Like, I'm not Tifosi like that, but I go, hold on a second. I like Leclerc and I like Sainz. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that's good enough for me.
Yeah, I'll wear the Ferrari hat.
But that driver pairing, like you said, is great. We got some great driver pairings. We got those two right there. We got the McLaren Piastri.
Yeah, Piastri just signed.
He just signed up, read up again. Yeah. We got George and Lewis for the next couple of years.
Yeah.
the most dominating car has the worst lineup.
Yeah.
But the best driver.
Exactly. I honestly think Sargent will be out next year, and I think De Vries will go back into that spot.
De Vries goes to Williams?
Yeah.
Do you think De Vries is coming back?
I think so.
But he went to school. He's gone to Harvard now.
Yeah. Well, hey. Let's see if he went to business school.
You think he's coming back, eh?
I think just because other teams.
What have you heard, yo?
I haven't heard nothing. This is the thoughts of Darryl Timmons.
All right.
Come into my little
there
corner.
There you go.
I just think all the teams know that guy can drive.
He can wheel.
You go into a crappy car. It's hard for someone to adapt to a crappy car when they're just getting into F1. especially when he's driven a Merc, he's driven a Williams, and then you throw him into an AlphaTauri and say, hey, I know it's the worst car on the grid, worse than a Haas, worse than anything out there.
Yo, Magnussen had a good race. He finished in
Hulkenberg too.
Yeah, Hulkenberg did all right.
Hulkenberg qualified what, P9?
Yo, man, Hulkenberg can qualify. I'll give him that.
Yeah,
you know, I was kind of like, meh, you kick out Schumacher for this guy. Yeah. He could qualify. I mean, at the end, the results still look the same though. But yeah, okay. So you're going with De Vries at Williams next year.
De Vries to take the Sargent spot, or maybe even put Mick in there. Maybe Toto will pull some strings and get him into the second seat. Albon's not going anywhere.
No. I don't think Albon should go anywhere.
No,
Albon's gonna take Stroll's seat.
Ooh,
we're just having pure hypotheticals right now.
I know, I like that.
But listen, man, I'll be honest with you. I feel like Lance Stroll, the start of the season, crashed, whatever. He hasn't been having a good year by any stretch. He's way down on points compared to his teammate. But not only that, he's finishing like 14th, 15th when the car's finishing P2. And this crash right here, that's what you call a shake-up crash.
Yeah, that's his risk again.
It's very rare that guys crash in quali and then don't get it back together for the race start. It's a whole day later. Yeah. I was shocked when I was like, really? Because he jumped up and he walked out of there.
Yeah, the team said that they would have got the car back together. They were
willing to work all night together. I don't know, man. I think we are looking at somebody who's looking at himself in the mirror and saying, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
My dad's a billionaire. I've had a great time. I've won every rank leading into Formula One. I've raced in Formula One. I've podiumed in Formula One.
Formula One podium.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I just really feel like that he's kind of approaching that.
Yeah.
And I think the setup for him, I think if Big Stroll is trying to really do this, he knows he has to get rid of him. You know what I mean? And that's a tough pill to swallow as a dad, but if you can set it up in a way where you can kind of encourage his exit of the sport.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
Imagine this, Big Stroll comes in the hospital and goes, you know what, Lance? I can't watch you do this anymore.
Yeah.
You're my son. I love you too much. I don't want to see you get killed out there.
Yep. Stroll's done.
Could be. Anyhow, man, it's been a great banter. We haven't done this in a while. You know, we could go on for hours and hours and hours, but he's tired. He's got to get home. Listen, Suzuka this weekend.
Yes.
The guess
one of my favorite tracks.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Suzuka.
The guess is Max is back on top, but let's hope and pray that some of these improvements that these teams like Ferrari, Mercedes, McLaren, they're making, let's hope that we can get a little bit more interesting racing towards the tail end of the season, because we want to see that gap kind of close down, and it is shrinking.
It's crazy. You take the Red Bulls out, and it's an amazing F1 season.
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps saying. But Red Bull's probably going to win the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship this
exactly.
weekend. Anyhow, for another race weekend, I'm Dames. That's Darryl. Have yourself an amazing weekend. We'll talk after Suzuka. Peace.